unlike the first time of Pan-Africanism, Britain, France, and the United States can't stop it this time, because Pan-Africanism was stopped from the outside, not from the inside. It was stopped by a bullet in the head of Patrice Lumumba. It was stopped by repeated overthrows by the CIA and MI6, and it cannot happen anymore. They don't have the power, they don't have the space, and Africa can prevent it. I'm a king, yes. Most of the world is reaching the peak or has already reached the peak of their population. So what we have is aging rather than further population growth. China reached its peak population probably 2 years ago on the official estimates, and will now experience quite a significant decline of population. China's at 1.4 billion people. By the end of this century, the projection is well below 1 billion, and the actual UN medium forecast is below 800 million. The one region of the world where the population continues to grow rapidly is Africa. Africa's population grew 5 times from 1950 till today. It's 1.5 billion. According to the medium forecast of the UN, Africa's population will reach 2.5 billion at mid-century and about 3.7 billion in 2100. And in percentage terms, this means Africa's population was 9% of the world population in 1950. Today, it's 19%. 1 out of every 5 people on the planet is African. And by 2050, it will be about 25% of the world population. And by 2100, 35% of the world population. So Africa will be in the center of the world story, the world history, the world population, the world demographics in the course of this century. Now, what does all of this mean for Africa? I believe, not that it is inevitable, but I believe that it is feasible and the right target for Africa essentially to follow the path that China followed between 1980 and 2020 in a process of 40 years going from low income to high income, going from quite widespread continuing poverty, especially in rural areas, to zero poverty during this period. And because of the demographic changes as well, becoming a powerhouse of the world economy. And that is what I think should be envisioned, should be planned for, and should be accomplished. China used its advantages of planning, foresight, visioning, and even what we call relative lag. It's poverty, meaning a lot of catching up room, and technological innovation to achieve 10% per year economic growth over a 40-year period. There's the rule of 70, which many of you will know. If you want to know how much a growth process, how long it takes for something to double, take the growth rate and divide 70 by that growth rate. So if you're growing at 10% per year, divide 70 by 10, and that means every 7 years, the economy doubles in size. China achieved that kind of doubling over a 40-year period. So think about it. Every 7 years, you double in size. If you do that for 35 years, that's 5 doublings. 2 to the 5th power. 32-time increase of the economy in China, 32 times in 35 years. And because this continued even beyond 35 years, it's been about a 40-time increase of output of China, which is why China became the world's largest economy during this 40-year period. My analysis and recommendation is that Africa chart out such an ambitious trajectory, because Africa's time has come and its turn has come. China achieved rapid growth for 40 years. The other country of comparable size, India, has been growing at about 7% per year since the year 2000. Again, applying the same rule of 70, that means doubling every 10 years. And India has become, during this 25-year period, the third largest economy in the world. And its poverty is now below 5%. Remember India having poverty everywhere? Its extreme poverty rate is now below 5%. So my view is Africa's next. You're the next region of 1.5 billion people. But it takes some change of perspective and some new strategy. The change of perspective, first of all, is that this has to happen at a continent-wide scale. Africa was left after the imperialist age with 54 countries and a 55th one in dispute. The transformation that I'm talking about cannot happen 54 separate times. It should be an Africa-wide success, because scale matters in economics. China and India were able to grow so fast because of a large economy and a large market that supported a lot of innovation and supported a single strategy that was coherent to build out a power system, to build out a fast rail system, to build out a highway system, to build out a 5G digital system. And Africa, I want to act like the Union, like a continental free trade area that is investing at the African scale to accomplish the same. And that, I think, is the key first step to being able to replicate this rapid catching up plus leapfrogging process. In order to do that, first, think like a union, partner with universities across the continent to help engender this kind of Africa-wide ambition and strategy and know-how to get this done. Champion union, true African union, true Pan-Africanism to be able to accomplish this. And unlike the first time of Pan-Africanism, Britain, France, and the United States can't stop it this time, because Pan-Africanism was stopped from the outside, not from the inside. It was stopped by a bullet in the head of Patrice Lumumba. It was stopped by repeated overthrows by the CIA and MI6, and it cannot happen anymore. They don't have the power, they don't have the space, and Africa can prevent it. And so we can really have an Africa-wide strategy. And that means building out the infrastructure, the hard infrastructure of rail, of digital, of shipping, coastal shipping, and I could say the soft infrastructure of a continental-wide university excellence to put science and technology in the forefront, because this will require a lot of innovation and a lot of homegrown skills all over the continent. So we need this Africa-wide investment program that invests first in the young people. This vast population increase is so promising if you invest in the skills of the young people. Keep the mindset, no child should be without at least a high school education, upper secondary, minimum, everywhere, quality. No child should be at school without a laptop. Really. You need this for today's world. They're not expensive. They can be part of an education budget. Everybody needs digital access. We're all going to have our AI tutors online, helping us through difficult problem sets and so forth. You need to use the leapfrog technologies. So investing in the skills is critical. And then, of course, that means all of the rest of the infrastructure that supports this. This, I think, is what the great opportunity is. I think that this is what we really mean by the change of the world order. I believe that by 2050, Africa will be a high-income region. It will be a successful and growing region. It will be a region of peace, and it will be looked to throughout the world for partnership and for innovative solutions. Henry Kissinger had a famous adage that to be an enemy of the United States is dangerous, but to be a friend is fatal. So don't take any U.S. military bases on this continent. If there are any U.S. military bases, and there are some, send them home politely. Tell them Professor Sachs made the suggestion. And for Africa, it also means unity is key. Africa is too weak, country by country, to withstand great power politics. It needs to be able to stand on its own, and only unity can do that. And so this is very, very important. With the right vision and with the understanding of enough African leaders that the fate of Africa is totally shared in common, and that there's no way to operate on local politics alone, no way for South Africa to succeed if the rest of Africa doesn't succeed. We need a number of African leaders to say we're going to have a common strategy. This is extremely important, because with the common strategy, it also reduces the domestic games and the domestic politics. And that's quite important as well. Because with the common strategy, everybody has to make sure that everyone else is participating together in this venture. And I really believe in that approach, an approach of setting bold goals, and then the role of politics is to deliver the bold goals. And the accountability of politics is against those bold goals. Leadership is hard, by the way. And it's hard when there's poverty, dissension, economies are stuck, all these difficulties, rapid demographic change. It's very hard. I'm not excusing bad leadership, but I'm explaining that it's not easy also. And if not every country in Africa is well governed right now, and there are many that are not, a number are, with dynamic leaders who want to do better. And they should get together and say, on behalf of the whole continent, we really urge a bold Africa-wide strategy. That, I think, is extremely important. We were hearing somebody ask me about Mozambique this morning at a talk that I gave to the B20, and they said interest rates are 26% in Mozambique. But of course, you can't develop with 26% interest rates. Impossible. But there's no reason in the world why interest rates should be 26%. World interest rates are 4 or 5%. They're even lower in China, 2.5%. And so if the financial structure is made appropriate, the cost of capital can come way down, and that will also spur not only intra-African trade, but foreign investment into Africa and African exports to the rest of the world in lots of new sectors. And I also very strongly support African trade with China, with India, and with the Gulf region, and with ASEAN, with the Southeast Asian countries. And so one of the things we're keen to do is to help bring the business leaders from Asia to Africa, the business leaders from Africa to Asia, to make a substrate for these business deals to take place. So I think all of this is quite possible. Africa's demography is quite different because the fertility rates remain much higher. And on average, between 3.5 and 4 is the total fertility rate right now. The fertility rate is coming down. It will come down a lot, especially with urbanization and with education, because the two main drivers of reduced fertility rates are the education of the mother and urban life, because it's expensive to have kids in a city. Because the fertility rates are high, each family needs to educate 3 or 4 children on average, not 1. That's a burden financially, either for the government in its education budgets or for a family individually. But it has to be done, because there's no way in the 21st century that any of those children will have an economic future that's viable if they don't have an education. There's no advantage of having just a lot of young people. The only advantage is having a lot of young, well-educated people. This is a big difference. There is no demographic dividend per se. What there is a massive challenge for an unprecedented acceleration of educational coverage in Africa. I'm a big fan of the BRICS, and I think that right now the BRICS is 10 countries that have 46% of the world population and about 41% of the world GDP, and the G7 has about 30% of the world GDP. Bye-bye. I don't even know why they meet anymore. The big and fast-growing economies are in the BRICS. They could invite some of these G7 countries once in a while to look on. But the point is that the world needs to be remade to suit global development. We need institutions that work for all of the world, and the vast majority of the world is in the emerging economies, not in the West, plus Japan, Korea, Australia, New Zealand. If the logic that I'm advocating makes sense and is actually accomplished, and Africa starts growing as the fastest growing region of the world, which it should be because it's got the most headroom for rapid growth, then watch how investors start coming from all over the world to say, whoa, we have to be part of this. We need to build data centers. So we need to be part of this infrastructure program. We need to be key in the mining sector and so forth. So a lot of investment that now shuns Africa because it looks so risky and the growth is slow and it isn't clear what's happening in the geopolitics, I think can change quite dramatically. Make a plan, make it convincing, help the world to see it, to understand it, and to move irresistibly toward it. South Africa will be absolutely a continental leader in all of that, and that is good news.
I'm a king, oh, yes, I'm a king, oh, I think I'm a king, oh.